Hello, everybody. My name is Jack McCauley, and I teach engineering at UC Berkeley. I'm also an alumni of UC Berkeley. I was the commencement speaker for the class of engineering in 2018. I've been very fortunate in my career. I have these contacts with people that go back 30, 40 years from my career. I was a video game engineer. I design video games for a living, and it's a small industry. I work in entertainment. That's essentially where I work, but it's very small. And through these sort of relationships I've built over this time, I got gigs. And one of the gigs was Oculus. And it's a long story on how that gig came to be, but I'll get into that a little bit today. But the talk is like how to do a startup. And part of the talk is about relationship building and human factors. It's very important in a startup company, which can be very stressful. I would have to say that Oculus on the stress scale was an 11 for me, because I was a founder and co-founder. And the workload is like a 14, 15-hour day, and it never stopped. It was like weekends and weeks, so I'll talk about that a little bit too. Oculus was a successful company. We were acquired by Facebook in 2014. I was in my hotel. I got a call from my boss, and he said it this way. He goes, "Guess what?" And I go, "What?" Because I was expecting him to say some bad news or something. And he goes, "Well, we just got bought by Facebook." Because I had seen Mark Zuckerberg in the facility once, and I was wondering what the heck that guy was doing there, but he was interested in the company. The way we got connected to Mark Zuckerberg to purchase the company was through a venture capital firm. And one of the guys that worked at the VC firm, which was Andreessen Horowitz, they provided seed money to Facebook, was also a VR nut and a game guy. So that's how that worked. I didn't know this guy, my boss did, but he sort of hooked us up with Zuckerberg, who was very much impressed with our work. This is where I work. This is a makerspace, and what we do there is it's like hands-on engineering. Like when you build something, it's like getting your hands on it and running the 3D printers and screwing things together and soldering wires and so forth. I built this facility with Paul Jacobs from Qualcomm. He's the CEO of Qualcomm. He doesn't do that anymore. He quit. We built this facility because I think the university, which is a theoretical university, had a shortage of sort of fun makerspace stuff. And at this time, it was sort of the makerspace stuff was sort of blooming. And so this facility is relatively new. I work there. I teach vehicle engineering. Believe it or not, I know a lot about cars, and I teach electric vehicle engineering in the environmental engineering department of UC Berkeley. As I said, I'm a video game engineer, and I'm an inventor. I've got numerous patents. When you work for a company and you're doing development work, it's usually in association with the legal department, and the legal department oversees the intellectual property. As part of my participation, I would do inventions and things like that, like the Oculus headset. Apple Watch stuff, I did a little bit of that. USB scrolling mouse is also one of my inventions, so the scrolling wheel and a mouse. Again, the jobs I got and the way I got hooked up was just this long string of connections. They also got me gigs at trustee positions and on boards and things like that, because I know a lot of people, and I don't get in people's grill. I made a point of not alienating people in my job. I tried my best not to do that. Sometimes I did, but I tried my best not to be a jerk. And so I'm the head engineer, co-founder of Oculus. I have 30 patents, roughly 12 issued. I'm not doing patents anymore. I stopped doing it because it takes too long for the patent office to do them. But if you're going to do a startup, you do need some intellectual property. And there's ways around that. It takes too long to issue a patent, but you can file continuation patents, or continuation in part, they call that. And that's to protect your IP and to register the date of the patent being placed in the patent office. So it's important to have intellectual property in a startup. I was the head engineer on Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero was a $2 billion video game franchise about 10 years ago or something like that. It kind of ran its course there. It doesn't have the lifespan of Grand Theft Auto, which is a big franchise. But I was the head engineer for doing all the design and on the hardware mostly. But I also ran their development and stuff like that. So, and I mentioned the scrolling mouse. This is part of the video game stuff. I put a wheel on a mouse for your fingers, so I thought you could get depth, like you could move in and out on the game. But now people use a keyboard to do that. But that's what I was doing back then. As I mentioned, I work at Jacobs Institute. I have made it a point to try to give back to education. A lot of my earnings and money that I've been very fortunate due to my connections and so forth has gone back and donated to engineering, particularly STEM stuff, all over. And I think it's important that the United States has good quality engineers. We cannot produce enough engineers here. We can't. We don't have enough. We have to bring them in from other countries, Ukraine, Russia, India, China, other places, because we just can't produce enough. So my thinking in doing this donation stuff is that I'd be able to produce better engineers, give people an opportunity to get a good education. So that's what I'm doing with it. And I worked 30 years in entertainment. I worked on Terminator 2, the movie. This was in the late 80s. I was out of college and working for a guy that incidentally got me another gig, but he was a professor at UC Berkeley, difficult guy, but very brilliant, absolutely brilliant guy. But I worked on Terminator 2, did the sound system for that, the digital part. I got an Oscar. I didn't get an Oscar. The company that paid us to do the work, Kodak Research is where I worked, did that. And since then, it was in Dick Tracy and a couple other films where we were beat out by Dolby. Dolby just overtook us, and they had slightly better tech, and they were very deeply embedded in the market anyway, so everyone kind of knew who Dolby was. So there's some of the stuff. I got a scholarship when I was 9 for doing toy stuff, designing toys. I didn't really know what I was doing, I don't think, but I've always done that. I've always started doing toys and things like that and hobbies and things like this, and those hobbies lead into other stuff. I was talking to someone today about Oculus. It's like I had dabbled in VR a little bit in my career, but I didn't really see the point in doing it because the screen resolution was too low and the refresh rate was too low and you couldn't hardly wear it. It would make you sick. But I'd sort of been playing around with that. This picture here is at Oculus in Irvine, California. We were in Irvine. I live in San Francisco. This was in Irvine. And this was the first room experience VR system that was built. And this wasn't built by us. It was built by Valve Software. Valve's a game company, game publisher. But that's me standing there playing around with it. So here's what I would do if you have a startup. This is what I get to do advisory stuff for startups. I get on their board and I help them try to get their stuff off the ground by doing introductions, tips, and so forth. The best thing to do when you go to meet an investor is to have a prototype. It doesn't even have to work, but it has to look good. And take your prototype in there and show the prototype to them so that they cue in on it in their mind, what you're going to do. Simply explaining it to them or a slide deck with a couple renders or something is not good enough. So we always built a prototype. In Oculus, the guys came in, this guy named Brendan Uribe, who was just amazing, amazing guy, came in with Palmer Luckey's prototype, showed it to me, and it was working. We had it working with a game, Doom, John Carmack's game, Doom, and I just thought it was cool. I didn't know what was going to happen with it. I mean, I just wanted to work on it. I didn't think it would go anywhere. And it kind of hasn't. Facebook bought it, and now it's called Quest. It's a VR headset called Quest. But I don't know what they intend to do with it. It's not really a good gaming appliance, because most video games are played on your mobile phone or seated in front of a screen or multiple monitors. That's how it's done. They don't wear VR headsets. But it's great for other stuff, for product development, design. But Facebook bought us. Can't say I mind that. So when you do your prototype, do a slide deck. A slide deck consists of a series of PowerPoint slides like this, explaining the company in very clear and simple language. Sometimes you're only given like 5 minutes, so you have to nail it. You have to rehearse it. and try to be genuine and try to come across as genuine too. They don't like to see stuff like, you know, people singing and things. I've seen that. It's kind of weird. If it's a singing game, I guess. So they just want to get through it as fast as possible, and you'll hear back from them. But in your slide deck, you want to put your advisors, and these are seasoned people. Our CEO at the company, he had 2 prior exits, successful exits. One he sold to Autodesk, which is a big CAD company, and another one, and then Oculus. So he was already pretty experienced, and he's really, really good at slide decks and pitching. So we pitched Andreessen Horowitz at Oculus, and we got seed money from them. We also did Spark Capital, but find those VCs if you're interested in using a VC or the people, and do your presentation and really get it nailed down cold. Experienced advisors, talent and technical talent in your pitch deck. Put the technical people on your team, like a grid of the folks who are helping you out, even if they're just contractors. Put them in there and a little bit of background on them. Because the people want to see that you have the guns on board to do the work. And that's what I would look for. Is like, who's doing the programming? I'd go on LinkedIn, look at, go into LinkedIn, look them up. If I don't know them, find out who they are before you invest. And it's important, this is what we did at Oculus and other places, not so much Guitar Hero, because that wasn't my company, that's my friend's company, but you got to get your own money into it, even if you don't have much. Now, Oculus, like one guy was 19, he didn't have anything. He lived in a trailer, he was living in a trailer. He didn't have anything. A couple other people did. I did okay, and then another guy did. So we put our own capital into it. So when we went to the VC people, we said, look, here's $4 million or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be $4 million. I mean, that's just an example. We have put our own money into this. We really believe in it, and they kind of want to see that. And so that's why you need to have friends and family. Like my family, when I went to a startup, I went to my brothers and sisters and I said, this is what I'm going to do. You want to take a risk with me? And they give me like $5,000, right? $5,000, not too risky, but it's really, it's a lot of money, really, kind of. And other people give me some. In the case of Oculus, that turned into a huge windfall for them. I mean, they're like sports cars and all that stuff. That can happen, but you have to get people on board and collect the money together and get the stuff together and show in one of your slides, show them your seed, your money you have invested in the startup. And if you don't have that and you can't get that, you should find an investor to do the seed. And this is the purpose of your pitch, is to be able to pitch to the potential investors. It could be an individual, let's say. In the case of Guitar Hero, which was Red Octane, we didn't have venture capital in the company. It was all private money from people in Taiwan principally, but just mom and pops and people putting in relatives or whatever. And that's the money we had to start the company with. And here's another thing that they want to see, and you probably have heard this. I'll tell you a little quick story. I only have a few minutes left, but when we did Oculus, we did this huge PR campaign with Kickstarter, and it was professionally done with a film crew. I mean, they came to my facility, and I have an R&D facility. They came, we filmed the entire thing there. And I don't do that. That's not my game. I'm an engineer. I don't really get involved in marketing stuff too much. But and I didn't understand what they were doing. It's like, why are you putting this on Kickstarter? Well, they were doing it for PR. It's cheap PR. At the same time, there was a company called Ouya, who was a game controller thing, who started out. They got equal capital. You get a little bit of investors from Kickstarter, for instance, crowdfunding stuff. They got that money, and they could not get the thing built. They couldn't find a contract manufacturer. For Oculus, fortunately, a good friend of mine in China had a factory and agreed to do it, but we had to pay her, it was her, up front. We had to give her $750,000 before she, it's too risky, right? They don't want to take the risk. So we had to pull money out of the bank and prepay her for it. But they did a wonderful job. It just nailed it. It was really beautiful, the kit. The whole thing, the design on the kit and everything was intentionally to reflect the fact that it was a developer kit. It came in a little box, like you'd expect, like a toolbox kind of thing. It was really cool, great idea. But that's what we did. We went to Foxconn, which is a giant contract manufacturer, trying to find support. Nobody would take it. Nobody would take Foxconn. Jimmy Chi, the guy that runs Foxconn, would not take take the project from us. He said we don't have the manpower or the time or anything. So we were fortunate to find that. That's where people stumble with hardware. If you do it on an app, it's much simpler to do this. And I was talking to someone down in the exhibition hall. I didn't realize they were a game developer, but they did it for like $200, and it was very successful. So if an app is a different thing, but for hardware, which is what I am, a hardware engineer, it's a different thing. So that's the very first prototype. That's not me. I'm repeating what I'm saying here, but get your deck and your prototype together, right? Get your slide deck and your widget. It doesn't have to work. This worked. This was the very first Oculus headset, which was handmade by Palmer Luckey, the kid that we hired, the kid that was co-founded the company with us. And we had a demo game running with it. So this is what we did. We took this around and showed it to people. We showed it to VC, and it just blew their minds. It was really pretty good. In our case, Spark Capital and Andreessen Horowitz I like VCs. A lot of people don't want to deal with them, but to me, it's like if you get a VC on board, it's like a sign-off from them that you've got something, and you're going to get more investors. So we started with Spark. We were their first customer. And then from that, we got Andreessen Horowitz, which is a big VC firm. We got 90 million, and I think it was total of 90 million, 35 and 70, something like that, I forget, 35 and 60. And those guys, unfortunately, you have to give away a lot. You're giving away a portion of your company to the investor. That's just the way it is. So this is important. Getting VCs to sign on, like when you go do your slide deck, you say, I have interest from Andreessen Horowitz. It means a lot because it's already gone through this big filter. That's Oculus in 2013. I don't know how many people work there now, probably a couple thousand. But this is basically who we started with. And that guy standing next to me, that's Palmer, the kid that he was 19 then, built the headset. That's my R&D. I got my own private R&D facility. I still do this stuff. Even though I'm retired and I teach, I still like to make things. I can't help it. It's like creative. I like creative things. And that's what I have. Thank you. And I'll take some questions. Any questions? Thank you. Where's the Q&A stuff? It was on Slido, right?
Nothing's come in.
What's that?
Nothing's come in.
Oh. Well, you can ask me a question if you want. Yes, sir.
So I'm just curious, you mentioned that crowdfunding. Wondering what you think of equity crowdfunding sites versus VCs now?
We didn't use the equity. The type of equity that we had with Kickstarter was you essentially sold them a headset. They pre-bought one. Yeah, I don't use equity crowdfunding sites. I'm not familiar with that. What I would do is I'm connected to the VC world. I would contact a VC or something like that is what I do, or friends or family, or my own investment in it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So earlier you were talking a lot about relationships. Can you talk a little bit more about how an entrepreneur can go into like essentially doing networking, but finding the best at what they do?
You're in a perfect spot because you go to South by Southwest or go to shows. You know, it's $50 or something to get in, or it's more than that probably. But I like to go to SEMA and I meet people. Like I met Wiley Publishing here. I don't know anything about publishing books. I won't talk to those guys. That's what I do. And then through my contacts, through my work, you know, just through my career, meeting people, I stayed in touch with people. Like I will call them. Even if I don't like them, I'll call them once a year or every 6 months to see how they're doing. And it gets remembered, that sort of human factor. So that's kind of what I do. But to get connected, you know, having an engineering degree is very helpful because you get an engineering degree, you go work at a company, you meet people that come and go at the company, you stay in touch with them. That's kind of what I did. And my industry, the stuff I worked in was very small. There's not that many people in it. It's a big entertainment. As far as entertainment, it's almost bigger than movies and regular entertainment, but the number of people involved in it is not very large.
Have you ever just like reached out directly?
I haven't had too much success with that. I would have more success now, but not back then, no. Usually it gets ignored, the call. You know, if I have a call like that, I never hear back. Emails and things like that. LinkedIn, you can try that. But going and meeting, just like what you're doing now, is the way to do it. Yes, sir.
What was the biggest challenge when you were building these
The biggest challenge, we had 90 days because of the Kickstarter campaign to produce it. So from the time the Kickstarter launched, we had 3 months to get it completely manufactured and produced. That's the 15-hour days. And then trying to wrangle the team together to work together. You know, sometimes people don't work together real well sometimes, but trying to get all that to function, you know, trying to keep everyone happy and working on it, you know. So it's just a lot of hours just pounding down on the time. And like I didn't really have a life besides that stuff. Still kind of don't, but that's what I was. That was the biggest challenge is for us getting that there. The funding part, it was easier to get the funding because of the great boss I had, and this guy he can read people. I don't know how he does it. He just reads people. He can read your facial. They call it empathy, I think, right? You can read your facial expression. Yes, yes, ma'am.
How did you keep your team motivated during those 15-hour days to stay on goal and on task?
Well, you give them free meals. You buy a cot to sleep on. Free beer, that does it. 5 o'clock happy hour. And then you make it clear that everyone has to hustle. Yes, ma'am. Yes. How do you choose the advisor? You go to things like this and you do your pitch to someone like me and ask me if I want to be an advisor. That's how you do it. It's that simple. Pardon me? On a board? What's my criteria? If I like the product and I like the people I'm working with, I'm okay with it. If I don't like the product, I probably wouldn't do it or don't have the time. I'll do a board. I'll do an advisor thing and not do anything. You know, I don't have the bandwidth to. But I will try to help them if they ask me. I'll try to pitch in. I think I'm out of time though. If you want to talk to me, I'll be around here. Yeah. Thank you very much.